The elevator doors opened on the 52nd floor, and Nathan Jarrett stepped into the marble lobby of the law firm where his fate would be decided, though not in the way he expected. He had never been comfortable in places like this. The polished surfaces, the hushed tones, the abstract art that probably cost more than his mother's annual salary back, when she was still alive, all of it reminded him that he didn't belong. Even now, with 8 figures in his bank account and a construction empire that stretched across 3 states, he felt like the kid who grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with water stains on the ceiling. Mr. Jarrett. A receptionist with perfectly styled hair looked up from her desk. Miss Fitzgerald will see you shortly. Please have a seat. Nathan nodded and settled into one of the leather chairs, his calloused hands resting on his knees. He dressed in his best suit, but he knew he still looked out of place. There was no hiding the scar above his left eyebrow from a construction accident when he was 19, or the way his shoulders filled out his jacket from years of physical labor before he'd built his company into what it was today. The door to the inner offices opened, and a woman emerged. Nathan glanced up, then found himself unable to look away. She was tall, probably 5'10" in her heels, with honey blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her navy suit was impeccably tailored, and she moved with the kind of grace that came from years of ballet lessons and finishing schools. But it was her eyes that caught him, bright green and sharp, taking in everything with quick intelligence. Mr. Jarrett, her voice was smooth, professional. I'm Millionaire Fitzgerald. Thank you for coming in. Nathan stood and they shook hands. Her grip was firm, confident. Please follow me. He followed her down a hallway lined with portraits of distinguished-looking men in suits. The nameplate on her office door read, Millionaire M. Fitzgerald, Senior Associate. The office itself was spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the city skyline. Please sit, Millionaire said, moving behind her desk. She opened a folder and scanned the contents. I've been reviewing your case. The city is claiming eminent domain on 3 of your properties in the West End development zone. That's right. Nathan leaned forward. Those properties represent 2 years of investment and planning. I've got permits, architectural plans, everything ready to break ground on affordable housing units. And now they want to bulldoze it all for some luxury shopping complex. Millionaire's eyes flicked up from the documents. Affordable housing. Yes. Nathan met her gaze steadily. I grew up in the West End. I know what it's like to watch your neighborhood crumble because nobody cares enough to invest in it properly. When I made my money, I promised myself I'd do something about it. Something shifted in Millionaire's expression, though Nathan couldn't quite read it. She returned her attention to the papers. The city has a strong case for eminent domain. I won't lie to you, she said. But there are arguments we can make about the public benefit requirement. If we can demonstrate that your affordable housing plan serves a greater public good than their shopping complex, we might have a chance. Might. I don't make promises I can't keep, Mr. Jarrett. Millionaire's tone was crisp. But I'm very good at my job and I think this case is worth fighting. Nathan studied her. Why? Why what? Why take this case? I'm sure you've got plenty of corporate clients who pay better than I can. Millionaire set down her pen and met his eyes directly. Because you're right. The West End deserves better than another luxury development. And because I don't like seeing people get pushed around by those with more power. There was something in the way she said it, a flash of genuine conviction beneath the professional polish that made Nathan believe her. All right, he said. Then let's fight. Over the next 3 weeks, Nathan found himself spending more time in Millionaire's office than at his own construction sites. They pored over documents, built arguments, and prepared for depositions. Millionaire was relentless. her mind sharp as a blade as she picked apart the city's case piece by piece. But there were moments, small ones, when the professional facade would slip. Like the afternoon Nathan brought sandwiches from a deli in his old neighborhood. Millionaire had wrinkled her nose initially at the wax paper wrapping, so different from the catered lunches she usually had delivered. But after the first bite, her eyes had widened. "This is incredible," she'd said, a hint of surprise in her voice. "Best pastrami in the city," Nathan had replied. "Though you probably wouldn't know it from the outside. Place looks like it's about to fall apart." "I've learned not to judge things by their appearances." She'd taken another bite, and for just a moment, she looked less like a high-powered attorney and more like a woman enjoying a good sandwich. Another time, late in the evening when they were both exhausted from preparing depositions, Millionaire had kicked off her heels and curled her legs under her in the chair. Nathan had noticed her stifling a yawn. "We can call it a night," he'd offered. "No, we need to finish this section." But even as she said it, she'd rubbed her eyes tiredly. "When was the last time you ate a real meal? And I don't mean coffee and whatever those grain things are in your desk drawer. They're artisanal granola bars, and they're perfectly nutritious. They're sawdust held together with honey." Nathan had stood. "Come on. There's a diner around the corner. We'll take a break, get some real food, and come back to this." Millionaire had looked like she wanted to argue, but her stomach had betrayed her with a loud growl. A smile had tugged at her lips, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "All right, but just a quick break." The diner had been busy, full of office workers and students. They'd squeezed into a booth with cracked vinyl seats, and Nathan had watched Millionaire's eyes widen as she took in the laminated menus and the tired-looking waitress with her pad of paper. "When was the last time you were in a place like this?" he'd asked. Millionaire had been quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I don't think I ever have. Never. My family doesn't really do diners." She'd said it matter-of-factly, without pretension, but it had still highlighted the chasm between their worlds. Nathan had ordered meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Millionaire, after some deliberation, had ordered the same. When it arrived, generous portions on heavy ceramic plates, she'd looked at it like it was a puzzle to solve. "Just dig in," Nathan had encouraged. She had, and her expression had transformed. "This is delicious. Comfort food usually is." They'd talked that night, really talked, about things beyond the case. Nathan had told her about growing up in the West End, about his mother working 2 jobs to keep them afloat, about learning construction from his uncle, and slowly building his business from a single work crew to the company it was now. Millionaire had listened intently, asking questions that showed she was genuinely interested, not just being polite. "What about you?" Nathan had asked. "What's your story?" Millionaire had hesitated, her fork pausing halfway to her mouth. "It's not as interesting as yours." "I doubt that." She'd set down her fork. "I'm 4th generation at my firm. My great-grandfather founded it. My grandfather expanded it. My father is currently a senior partner. My older brother joined 5 years ago. And you?" "I've been there since I graduated from Yale Law. It was always the plan." There was something in her voice, a flatness that suggested plans weren't always dreams. "You like it. I'm good at it." It wasn't quite an answer. Nathan had wanted to press further, but something in her expression had warned him off. Instead, he'd changed the subject, and they'd finished their meal talking about everything and nothing. The deposition the next day had been brutal. The city's attorneys were aggressive, trying to paint Nathan as an opportunist trying to profit off the West End's struggling economy. But Millionaire had been magnificent, objecting at precisely the right moments, redirecting lines of questioning with surgical precision. When it was over, Nathan had felt wrung out. But Millionaire had been energized, her eyes bright with the thrill of battle. "They're worried," she'd said as they'd walked back to her office. "They wouldn't be pushing so hard if they thought their case was solid." "You were incredible in there," Nathan had said. Eleanor had glanced at him, and something warm had flickered across her face. "Thank you." It was a small moment, but Nathan had felt something shift between them. This wasn't just lawyer and client anymore. The preliminary hearing was set for a Thursday morning in late October. Nathan arrived at the courthouse early, his stomach tight with nerves. Everything he'd worked for was riding on this. Eleanor was already there, looking calm and collected in a charcoal suit. She gave him a reassuring nod. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." The hearing lasted 4 hours. Nathan watched Eleanor work with growing admiration. She presented their case with passion and precision, arguing that Nathan's planned affordable housing development served a far greater public benefit than a luxury shopping complex that would only gentrify the neighborhood and displace long-time residents. She called expert witnesses urban planners, economists, community activists who testified to the need for affordable housing in the West End. She presented Nathan's plans in detail, showing how he'd worked with local architects and community leaders to design housing that would truly serve the neighborhood's needs. The city's attorneys pushed back hard, but Eleanor was ready for every argument. When the judge finally called a recess to review the evidence, Nathan felt cautiously hopeful. "How do you think it went?" he asked Eleanor in the hallway outside the courtroom. "I think we made our case." She turned to face him fully. "Now we wait. I hate waiting. Most people do." She paused, then added, "There's a coffee shop across the street. Want to get out of this courthouse for a bit." They spent the next hour in the coffee shop, ostensibly discussing the hearing but really just talking. Nathan found himself telling Eleanor about his plans beyond the West End development community centers, job training programs, investments in local businesses. "You really care about this," Eleanor said. It wasn't a question. "I remember what it was like to be a kid in that neighborhood, feeling like the whole world had forgotten about us. If I can change that for even a few families, it's worth it." Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee. "I envy that." "What?" "Your conviction, your purpose. You know exactly what you're working toward and why it matters." "You don't." She looked up at him, and for the first time, Nathan saw uncertainty in her eyes. "I've spent my whole life following a path that was laid out for me before I was born. Sometimes I wonder what I would have chosen if I'd had a real choice." "It's not too late to choose, isn't it?" She said it softly, almost to herself. Nathan's phone buzzed before he could respond. A text from Eleanor's assistant. The judge was ready with a decision. They walked back to the courthouse in tense silence. Nathan could feel his heart pounding as they took their seats. The judge cleared his throat. "I've reviewed the evidence and arguments presented by both sides. This was not an easy decision." Nathan's hands clenched in his lap. "However, I find that the plaintiff has successfully demonstrated that his proposed development serves a compelling public interest that outweighs the city's planned commercial project. The claim of eminent domain is therefore denied." Relief crashed over Nathan like a wave. They'd won. He'd actually won. He turned to Eleanor, who was gathering her papers with professional composure, but he could see the satisfaction in her eyes. "We did it," he said quietly. "You did it," she corrected. "It's your vision, your work. I just helped present it." Outside the courthouse, Nathan felt like he could breathe properly for the first time in weeks. The October afternoon was crisp and clear, the sun slanting golden through the buildings. "Thank you," he said to Eleanor. "Really, I couldn't have done this without you. You're welcome." She extended her hand for a professional handshake. "It was a pleasure working with you, Mr. Jarrett." Nathan took her hand but didn't shake it. Instead, he held it gently. Nathan, please, I think we're past formalities. Alina's cheeks colored slightly. Nathan then. Have dinner with me, he said suddenly, to celebrate. That's not really necessary. Professional, I know, Nathan smiled. But I'd like to, if you would. Alina looked at him for a long moment. Nathan could almost see her weighing it, considering all the reasons it might be a bad idea. Then something in her expression softened. All right. Dinner. Nathan took her to a restaurant in his old neighborhood, not the deli or the diner, but a place that had been there for 30 years, run by a family who made everything from scratch. It was the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles, where the owner knew most of the customers by name. Alina looked around with obvious curiosity as they were seated. This place doesn't look like much, Nathan admitted, but the food is incredible. And Sal, he's the owner, he's known me since I was a kid. You come here often, when I can. Sal gave me free meals when I was starting out, couldn't always afford to eat, told me I could pay him back when I made it. Nathan smiled. Took me 5 years, but I did. As if summoned, a broad-shouldered man with graying hair approached their table. Nathan, it's been too long. Nathan stood to embrace him. Good to see you, Sal. This is Alina. Sal's eyes lit up with interest as he shook Alina's hand. Alina, any friend of Nathan's is family here. I'll make sure you get the best meal of your life tonight. After Sal bustled off to the kitchen, Alina leaned forward. He seems wonderful. He is. People like Sal, they're the heart of the West End. That's what I'm trying to preserve with the housing development. Not just buildings, but community. The food, when it came, was indeed extraordinary. Alina seemed to relax as the evening went on, the professional armor gradually falling away. She laughed at Nathan's stories about construction mishaps and his early days trying to run a business without really knowing what he was doing. You make it sound easy, she said, but what you've built is remarkable. Most people don't go from working construction to owning a multi-million-dollar company. Nathan shrugged. I got lucky, had some good people who believed in me, and I worked hard. Don't downplay it. Alina's tone was serious. You saw an opportunity and you seized it. You built something from nothing. That takes courage. Is that what you think you lack? Courage? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She took a sip of wine, considering. Maybe. It's easy to be brave when you have nothing to lose. Harder when you're risking everything you've ever known. But if you're not happy, who says I'm not happy? The defensive edge in her voice told Nathan he'd struck a nerve. You did earlier, or at least implied it. Alina was quiet, then she sighed. My father expects me to make partner in the next 2 years. My brother is already on track for it. There's a legacy to uphold, a reputation to maintain. And what do you want? I don't know. She said it so quietly Nathan almost didn't hear her. I've never really asked myself that question. Nathan reached across the table and took her hand. It was a bold move, maybe too bold, but he felt compelled to offer comfort. Maybe it's time you did. Alina looked down at their joined hands, but she didn't pull away. Maybe. They stayed at the restaurant until Sal started giving them meaningful looks and wiping down the tables around them. When they finally stepped outside, the night air was cold and Alina shivered. Without thinking, Nathan shrugged off his jacket and draped it around her shoulders. Thank you, she said, pulling it closer. For dinner, for everything. Can I see you again? Nathan asked. Not as your client. Just as me. Alina looked up at him, and in the streetlight her eyes seemed to hold 100 different emotions. My family would have a heart attack if they knew I was even considering dating someone from. She stopped abruptly, her eyes widening in horror at what she'd almost said. Someone from the wrong side of the tracks, Nathan finished for her, his voice careful. I wasn't going to say that, but you were thinking it. No, Alina's hand found his. I was thinking about what they would say, not what I think. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. She said it firmly. My family has certain expectations, certain standards, and they're often wrong. She squeezed his hand. I'd like to see you again. Very much. Nathan felt warmth spread through his chest. Saturday, I could show you the West End where the development will be. I'd like that. Saturday dawned cold but sunny. Nathan picked Alina up from her apartment building a sleek high-rise in the financial district with a doorman and marble lobby. She came down wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back. She looked younger this way, less intimidating. Ready for a tour of the real city? Nathan asked. Absolutely. He drove her through the West End, pointing out landmarks from his childhood, the elementary school where he'd learned to read, the corner store where he'd saved up for comic books, the apartment building where he'd grown up now vacant and scheduled for demolition, but not before he bought it and planned to renovate it as part of his housing development. That was home, he said, pointing to a third-floor window. Me and my mom in 2 bedrooms. She worked at the hospital during the day, cleaned offices at night. I barely saw her some weeks. Where is she now? Alina asked gently. She passed 6 years ago, cancer. Nathan's voice was steady, but Alina heard the grief beneath it. Never got to see me succeed. That's my biggest regret. Alina touched his arm softly. I'm sure she knew you would. They walked through the empty lots where Nathan's development would rise. He described his vision: mixed-income housing with community spaces, courtyards where kids could play safely, ground floor spaces for local businesses. It's not just about buildings, he explained. It's about creating opportunity. My mother always told me that people don't need handouts, they need a hand up. A decent place to live, that's a hand up. Alina listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. Nathan found himself appreciating her mind as much as anything else about her. She understood the nuances, the challenges, the potential. You know what I love about this? She said as they stood in what would become a central courtyard. You're not trying to change the neighborhood into something it's not. You're trying to help it become the best version of itself. Exactly. Nathan smiled at her. You get it. They had lunch at a food truck that served the best tacos Nathan had ever tasted. Alina ate hers enthusiastically, sauce dripping down her chin. When Nathan laughed and reached over to wipe it away with a napkin, she blushed. Sorry, I'm not usually this messy. I like you better this way. Less perfect, more real. I'm not perfect, Alina said. I just hide my imperfections well. Then stop hiding. They spent the afternoon wandering the neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing. Alina told him more about her family, old money, old expectations. Her father, James Fitzgerald III, who expected her to marry someone from their social circle and continue the family legacy. Her mother, Catherine, who hosted charity galas and sat on museum boards. Her brother, Thomas, who seemed content to follow in their father's footsteps. They're not bad people, Alina said. They just live in a very small world and they expect me to stay in it with them. What do you expect of yourself? I'm still figuring that out. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Nathan drove Alina to one more place, a hill overlooking the city, where you could see both the gleaming downtown skyscrapers and the sprawling neighborhoods beyond. This is my favorite spot, Nathan said as they got out of the car. When I was building my company and everything felt impossible, I'd come here. It helped me remember what I was working toward. They stood side by side, looking out at the city. Alina shivered in the cooling air, and Nathan put his arm around her shoulders. She leaned into him naturally. Thank you for today, she said. I've lived in this city my whole life, but I've never really seen it before, not like this. Thank you for seeing it with me. Eleanor turned to look at him, and Nathan found himself caught in her gaze. Slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her. She kissed him back, soft and tentative at first, then with growing confidence. When they finally broke apart, Eleanor's cheeks were flushed and her eyes were bright. "I've wanted to do that since the day I met you," Nathan admitted. "Then why did you wait so long? Didn't want to scare you off?" Eleanor laughed. "It takes more than that to scare me." They started dating properly after that, though they had to navigate the complicated waters of their different worlds. Eleanor's family was hosting a gala at the Museum of Modern Art, and she invited Nathan as her date. "Fair warning," she said as they drove to the museum. "My parents will be there, and they're going to ask you a lot of questions." "About what? Your background, your family, your prospects?" Eleanor made a face. "They're going to be insufferable, and I'm sorry in advance." Nathan took her hand. "I can handle your parents." The museum was transformed for the event, with string quartets and champagne towers and women in glittering gowns. Nathan wore his best suit and still felt underdressed. But Eleanor looked radiant in a floor-length emerald dress that matched her eyes, and when she smiled at him, nothing else mattered. Eleanor's parents found them within 10 minutes. James Fitzgerald Roman III was tall and patrician, with steel-gray hair and a handshake that felt like a test. Catherine Fitzgerald was elegant and cool, with the same green eyes as her daughter but none of the warmth. "Mother, father, this is Nathan Jarrett," Eleanor said. "Nathan, my parents, Mr. Jarrett." James's tone was polite but assessing. "Eleanor tells us you work in construction." "I own a construction company," Nathan corrected mildly. "We specialize in residential and commercial development." "How interesting." Catherine's tone suggested it was anything but. "And where did you attend university?" "I didn't." Nathan met her gaze steadily. "I started working construction right out of high school and built my business from there." The temperature around them seemed to drop several degrees. Eleanor's hand tightened on Nathan's arm. "Well," James said after a pause, "that's certainly industrious. Eleanor, dear, might we have a word?" "Actually, father, Nathan and I were just going to. It will only take a moment." It wasn't a request. Eleanor gave Nathan an apologetic look before following her parents to a quieter corner. Nathan couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see the tension in Eleanor's shoulders, the way her father gestured sharply and her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. When Eleanor returned 5 minutes later, her jaw was set. "Let's get out of here," she said. "Eleanor, please." "I need to leave." They left the gala and ended up back at the diner where they'd had their first real conversation. Eleanor still wore her evening gown, looking wildly out of place among the tired waitresses and late-night patrons, but she didn't seem to care. "I'm sorry," she said once they were seated. "My parents were completely inappropriate." "What did they say?" Eleanor closed her eyes. "That you're clearly just interested in my family's money and connections, that I'm embarrassing myself by dating someone so far beneath my station, that I need to end things with you immediately and start seeing Richard Pemberton from the Pemberton financial dynasty." Anger flared in Nathan's chest, but he kept his voice calm. "And what did you say?" "I told them that you're worth 10 of Richard Pemberton. That you've built something real through hard work and determination, not just inherited it. That they're snobs who judge people by their last names instead of their character." Eleanor opened her eyes, and Nathan saw tears threatening. "And my father said that if I continue seeing you, I can expect consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "He'll make things difficult for me at the firm. He has that power." She laughed bitterly. "He reminded me that I'm up for partner review next year, and these decisions are often influenced by more than just merit." Nathan reached across the table and took both her hands. "Eleanor, I don't want to be the reason you lose your career. You're not. They are. She squeezed his hands. And I'm tired of living my life according to their rules. I meant what I said to them. You're remarkable, Nathan. You're kind and driven, and you care about things that actually matter. And she paused, taking a shaky breath. I'm falling in love with you. Nathan's heart stuttered. You are. Yes, and it terrifies me, but I am. Good, Nathan said, moving around to her side of the booth, because I'm falling in love with you too. He kissed her there in the diner, in front of the bored waitress and the drunk college kids, and Alina kissed him back like she was claiming something that belonged to her. The next few months were challenging. Alina's parents maintained their disapproval, making it clear at every opportunity that Nathan was not welcome in their world. Alina's relationship with them grew strained and distant. At work, Alina noticed subtle changes. She was passed over for high-profile cases she would normally have been assigned. Her contributions in meetings were overlooked. Her father stopped inviting her to strategy sessions with senior partners, but Alina stood firm. She continued seeing Nathan, and she started making other changes too. She took on more pro bono cases, representing clients who couldn't afford elite legal fees. She found meaning in the work that she'd been missing in her corporate cases. Nathan's West End development broke ground in January, a cold morning with a small ceremony attended by community members and local officials. Alina was there, wearing a hard hat and looking adorably out of place as Nathan gave a speech about the project's vision. This development represents hope, Nathan said to the gathered crowd. Hope that our neighborhoods matter. Hope that everyone deserves a safe, affordable place to call home. Hope that we can build a better future together. The crowd applauded, and Alina felt pride swell in her chest. This man, this incredible man, was changing lives, and she got to stand beside him. Later, as they walked through the construction site, Nathan showed her the plans coming to life. Foundation laid, walls rising, the skeleton of something beautiful taking shape. It's really happening, Alina said wonderingly. Thanks in part to you. Nathan put his arm around her. If you hadn't won that case, you won that case. I just helped present it. We make a good team. We do. Spring brought more changes. Alina was formally passed over for a major promotion at the firm, with no explanation given beyond vague references to concerns about her judgment. It stung, but less than she expected. The work that had once seemed so important now felt hollow compared to what she was discovering she actually cared about. One evening, Nathan found her on his apartment balcony, staring out at the city lights. "Penny for your thoughts," he asked, joining her. "I'm thinking about quitting the firm." Nathan was quiet for a moment. "Is this because of your father?" "Partly, but mostly because I don't want to work there anymore." Alina turned to face him. "I've spent my whole life trying to live up to my family's expectations, and I'm tired, Nathan. I want to do something that matters." "What would you do?" "I've been thinking about it. I could start my own practice. Focus on housing law, tenant rights, the kinds of cases that actually help people." She bit her lip. "It would mean a lot less money. No more fancy apartment, no more designer clothes. My family would be furious." "But would you be happy?" Alina considered. "I think I might be, for the first time in a long time." "Then you should do it." Nathan pulled her close. "And for what it's worth, I think you'd be incredible. You're biased. Completely. Doesn't make me wrong." Alina laughed and kissed him. "I love you, you know. I know. I love you too." She gave her notice the next day. Her father called her into his office, closed the door, and lectured her for 45 minutes about throwing away her future, embarrassing the family, and letting some man lead her astray. Alina sat through it calmly. When he finally wound down, she spoke. "I'm not throwing away my future, Father. I'm choosing it for the first time. and Nathan isn't leading me anywhere. He's supporting me in becoming who I actually want to be, not who you've decided I should be." "And who is that?" James asked coldly. "Some crusading do-gooder who wastes her talents on lost causes. Someone who uses her talents to help people who actually need it." Eleanor stood. "I'm sorry that disappoints you, but I'm not sorry I'm doing it." She walked out of his office with her head high. Starting her own practice was harder than Eleanor had anticipated. She rented a small office above a dry cleaner, bought used furniture, and designed business cards on her laptop. It was a far cry from the marble and mahogany of her family's firm, but it was hers. Her first clients were referrals from Nathan tenants facing eviction, small business owners navigating lease disputes, families fighting predatory lending. The work was challenging and meaningful, and Eleanor threw herself into it with an enthusiasm she'd never felt at the family firm. Nathan was there for every step, offering encouragement and support. When she won her first case successfully defending a family from wrongful eviction, he took her out to celebrate. "To Eleanor Fitzgerald," he toasted at dinner, "the best damn lawyer I know. I think you might still be biased." "Always," he grinned. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying. Exhilarating. Right." Eleanor smiled. "It feels right." Summer arrived, and with it, significant progress on the West End development. The first buildings were taking shape, and Nathan began the process of selecting tenants. He created a lottery system to ensure fairness, prioritizing families with children and long-time residents of the neighborhood. Eleanor helped him navigate the legal complexities, ensuring everything was above board. Working together professionally again felt natural, easy. They fell into a rhythm, finishing each other's sentences and anticipating each other's needs. One Saturday in July, Nathan took Eleanor to see the completed model unit. They walked through the bright, airy apartment with its modern kitchen and spacious bedrooms. "What do you think?" Nathan asked. "It's beautiful, really beautiful." Eleanor ran her hand along the countertop. "You should be so proud." "I am, but Eleanor," Nathan took her hand, "I didn't just bring you here to see the model. I brought you here because I want to talk about our future." Eleanor's heart began to race. "Our future. I love you. More than I ever thought it was possible to love someone." Nathan's voice was steady, certain. "You've changed my life in ways I can't even fully articulate. You've made me better, happier, more complete." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Eleanor's breath caught. "I know we come from different worlds," Nathan continued, getting down on one knee. "I know your family will probably never approve of me. I know I can't offer you the kind of life you grew up with. But I can offer you all of me, my heart, my loyalty, my partnership in everything we do. Eleanor Margaret Fitzgerald, will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a simple diamond on a platinum band, elegant and understated. But Eleanor barely saw it through her tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." Nathan stood and kissed her, and Eleanor felt like her heart might burst from happiness. This was what she'd been missing her whole life, this feeling of being completely known and loved anyway, of choosing her own path and finding someone who wanted to walk it with her. "We should probably tell your parents," Nathan said eventually. Eleanor groaned. "Do we have to?" "Eventually." They drove to her parents' house the next day, Eleanor's engagement ring glinting on her finger. She felt nervous but resolute. She was marrying Nathan whether her parents approved or not, but she hoped they could find a way to be happy for her. The Fitzgerald estate was imposing, a stone mansion in the suburbs with perfectly manicured grounds. The housekeeper let them in, and they found Eleanor's parents in the sitting room. "Eleanor," Catherine said coolly, "we weren't expecting you. I have news." Eleanor held up her hand, showing the ring. "Nathan and I are engaged." The silence that followed was deafening. James stood slowly, his face reddening. "Absolutely not," he said. "I forbid it. You can't forbid it, Father. I'm 32 years old." "Then let me be clear. If you marry this man, you are no longer part of this family." James's voice was hard. "No more family dinners, no more holidays, no inheritance. You'll be on your own." Eleanor felt Nathan tense beside her, but she squeezed his hand. "If that's your choice, then I'm sorry," she said quietly. "But I'm marrying Nathan. He's the best man I've ever known, and I love him. I wish you could see what I see in him. I wish you could be happy for me. But if you can't, that's your loss, not mine." "Eleanor," Catherine began. "I love you both," Eleanor continued. "And I hope someday you'll come around, but I'm not waiting for your approval to live my life." She turned and walked out, Nathan beside her. It wasn't until they were back in the car that she started crying. "I'm so sorry," Nathan said, pulling her close. "If I'd known, no." Eleanor pulled back, wiping her eyes. "This is their choice, not yours. You've done nothing wrong. Still. Losing your family, I'm gaining one too." She managed a watery smile. "Right," Nathan kissed her forehead. "Right. And for what it's worth, my family would have loved you. Tell me about them." So Nathan did, telling stories about his mother and his uncle and the tight-knit community that had raised him. Eleanor listened and felt her tears slow. She'd lost one family, maybe, but she was gaining so much more. They planned the wedding for October, a year after they'd first met. It would be small and simple, held in the community center in the West End that Nathan had helped fund. Eleanor invited her parents, though she didn't expect them to come. Her brother Thomas surprised her by calling a week before the wedding. "Eleanor, it's me, Thomas." Eleanor hadn't spoken to him since the engagement announcement. "How are you?" "I'm good. Listen, I wanted to apologize. I should have called sooner." "It's all right." "No, it's not. I let Father dictate how I responded, and that wasn't fair to you." Thomas sighed. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said about choosing your own path, and I think you're brave, really brave." Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes again. "Thank you, that means a lot. I want to come to the wedding, if that's okay." "Of course it's okay, I'd love that." "Mother wants to come too, though she's scared of Father finding out, but I think I can convince her." "Really? She misses you, Eleanor. We all do. Father's just too stubborn to admit he's wrong." The wedding day dawned clear and bright. Eleanor got ready in a small room at the community center, helped by her neighbor and a few friends she'd made through her practice. Her dress was simple ivory lace, and she wore her hair down with small flowers tucked into it. When she emerged, Nathan was waiting at the end of the makeshift aisle, wearing a suit and looking nervous and happy and perfect. The community center was filled with people from the neighborhood, Nathan's construction crew, clients Eleanor had helped, friends they'd made together. And in the back row, Eleanor saw Thomas and Catherine. Her mother was crying, her hand clutched in Thomas's. Eleanor's heart swelled. The ceremony was short and sweet. Nathan's uncle officiated, speaking about love and partnership and building a life together. When it was time for vows, Nathan went first. "Eleanor, when I met you, I thought you were everything I wasn't: polished, educated, born into a world I'd never belonged to. But I've learned that we're not that different. We both want to make a difference. We both care about doing what's right, even when it's hard. You've challenged me, supported me, and loved me better than I ever imagined being loved. I promise to do the same for you every day for the rest of our lives." Eleanor was crying before she even started her own vows. "Nathan, you've taught me what courage really looks like. You've shown me that it's possible to stay true to yourself and still succeed, to be kind and strong, to care about people and build an empire. You've made me braver, better, more myself than I've ever been. I promise to stand beside you, to support your dreams, to build a life with you that matters. I love you more than words can say." They exchanged rings and kissed as husband and wife, and the community center erupted in applause. The reception was exactly what Alina had hoped for, joyful and loud, with too much food and dancing and laughter. Nathan's crew taught Alina the electric slide. Alina's new friends from the neighborhood showed Nathan how to salsa. It was chaotic and perfect. Catherine approached Alina during a quiet moment. "You look beautiful, darling," she said softly. "Mom," Alina embraced her. "I'm so glad you came. I'm sorry it took me so long to come around. Your father," Catherine shook her head. "He's set in his ways, but I miss my daughter. And I can see how happy Nathan makes you. He does. He really does. Then that's what matters." Catherine took Alina's hands. "I don't understand all your choices, but I'm trying to, and I want to be part of your life if you'll let me. Always." They talked for a long time, beginning the slow process of rebuilding their relationship. Thomas joined them eventually, and Alina felt a piece of her heart heal. The first phase of the West End development opened that winter, welcoming 20 families into new homes. Nathan and Alina attended every move-in day, helping families carry boxes and celebrating with them. One of the families was a single mother named Maria with 3 kids. She'd been living in a dangerous, run-down apartment before the lottery had selected her for the new housing. "I can't believe this is ours," she'd said, tears streaming down her face as she toured the apartment. "My kids will be safe here. They'll have space to do homework. There's a park right outside." Nathan had hugged her. "You deserve this. Your kids deserve this." Watching him, Alina had felt overwhelming love. This was why Nathan had worked so hard, sacrificed so much. To give families like Maria's a chance. Alina's practice continued to grow. She hired an assistant, then a junior associate. She took on bigger cases, winning significant victories for tenant rights and affordable housing protections. Local news covered some of her cases, and she became known as a fierce advocate for the underserved. One evening, she came home to find Nathan cooking dinner in their modest apartment. "Good day," he asked, kissing her hello. "Great day. We won the Riverside case. The landlord has to make all the repairs and can't raise rents for 3 years." "That's amazing." Nathan lifted her up and spun her around. "I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of us." Alina smiled up at him. "We make a pretty good team. The best." 2 years into their marriage, Alina found out she was pregnant. She'd been feeling tired and queasy for weeks before finally taking a test. When it came back positive, she'd stared at it in disbelief for a full 5 minutes. She told Nathan that night over dinner. He'd frozen with his fork halfway to his mouth. "Really?" he'd breathed. "Really? I'm pregnant." Nathan had dropped his fork and pulled her into his arms, laughing with pure joy. "We're having a baby. We're actually having a baby." The pregnancy was challenging but exciting. Alina worked until 2 weeks before her due date, determined to wrap up her active cases. Nathan was simultaneously terrified and thrilled, reading every parenting book he could find. Catherine was over the moon, knitting tiny sweaters and planning nursery designs. Even Thomas had gotten involved, building a crib with his own hands. "I never thought I'd see the day," Alina joked when he delivered it. "Neither did I." Thomas grinned. "But I'm going to be an uncle." That's worth learning carpentry for. James still hadn't come around, maintaining his disapproval from a distance. It hurt, but Alina had made peace with it. She couldn't force her father to accept her choices. Their daughter was born on a sunny May morning. Emma Jane Jarrett came into the world with powerful lungs and a full head of dark hair. Nathan cried when he held her for the first time, this tiny, perfect human they'd created together. "She's beautiful," he whispered, "just like her mother." "She has your chin," Alina observed, exhausted but elated. "Poor kid." They brought Emma home to the West End, to an apartment in the development Nathan had built. It felt right, raising their daughter in the community Nathan loved, surrounded by the families they'd worked to help. Parenthood was exhausting and wonderful. Nathan proved to be a natural father, patient and gentle with Emma. Eleanor discovered reserves of love she didn't know she possessed. When Emma was 3 months old, Eleanor got an unexpected visitor at her office. Her father stood in the doorway, looking older and more uncertain than she'd ever seen him. "Eleanor," James said, "may I come in, of course?" Eleanor gestured to a chair, her heart pounding. James sat, looking around the modest office. "You've done well for yourself. Thank you." He was quiet for a long moment. "I was wrong," he finally said, "about Nathan, about your choices, about everything." Eleanor felt tears spring to her eyes. "What changed your mind?" "Catherine showed me articles about your work, about Nathan's development project. I saw what you've both accomplished, the lives you've changed." James met her eyes. "And then I heard I had a granddaughter, and I realized I'd been so busy protecting some idea of what our family should be that I'd lost sight of what actually matters. Dad, would you let me meet her? Emma." Eleanor was crying now. "Yes, yes, of course." James stood and embraced his daughter for the first time in years. "I'm sorry for all of it. I should have trusted you to know your own heart. It's okay. You're here now." They brought Emma to meet her grandfather the next day. James held her carefully, as if she might break, and Eleanor watched his stern face soften with wonder. "She's perfect," he said hoarsely. "Absolutely perfect. She really is." Over the following months, James made efforts to rebuild his relationship with Eleanor and Nathan. It wasn't easy. Years of tension didn't dissolve overnight, but he tried. He came to dinners, asked Nathan about his work with genuine interest, and slowly earned back the trust he'd lost. The West End development continued to expand. Nathan broke ground on Phase 2, then Phase 3. The neighborhood was transforming, not being erased and replaced, but being strengthened and supported. Local businesses thrived, crime rates dropped, and families had safe, affordable places to live. Eleanor's practice expanded too. She hired more attorneys, took on more cases, won more victories. She became a sought-after expert on housing law, testifying before city council and state legislature. Through it all, Nathan and Eleanor built a life together. They raised Emma with love and intention, teaching her the value of hard work and compassion. They celebrated holidays with Catherine and Thomas and James, slowly knitting their fractured family back together. They worked side by side on projects that mattered, making